Welcome everyone to today's What They Think webinar entitled Getting Inside the Brand, Developing and Deploying Brand Identity. All participant lines will be in a listen-only mode throughout the call. If you'd like to submit questions or comments to the presenters, please type the question in the box on the bottom of the screen on your viewer console and click Ask to the right. Questions will be answered during the session. This archive will be available on What They Think following the session. It's my pleasure to introduce Carrie Sherburne. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Matt, and welcome everyone to today's webinar, Getting Inside the Brand, Developing and Deploying Brand Identity, which is sponsored by MarcomCentral. We're delighted to have more than 100 senior printing executives from around the world who've registered for this event. Today's topic will provide valuable insight into how marketers are thinking about brand identity and the role that printing companies can play in helping them manage identity and other branded materials. We're pleased to have with us today Mike Reinhardt, who's the Senior Director of Brand Sustainability for Monigle, a branding agency that specializes in identity, design, digital, and environmental branding. So welcome, Mike.
Thank you, Carrie, and nice to join everyone today.
Glad to have you. Mike and I actually worked together 15 years ago when I was doing marketing communications for another company. So it's nice to reconnect. And so for our viewers, you may want to download the PDF of today's slides using the link on your console. They contain some great information that I'm sure you're going to want to take a look at later on. Also remember that your questions are an important part of this session, so please submit your questions as early in the presentation as you can so that we can have Mike answer them live. You'll also, as Matt said, you'll see a questions box on your user console. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank MarcomCentral. Their generous support allows us to bring you this critical information at no charge. Formerly known as PTI Marketing Technologies, MarcomCentral has been a leading provider of software solutions for print service providers for more than 15 years. Its core products include MarcomCentral Web to Print, a cloud-based marketing asset management solution that produces web-based corporate marketing portals for brand management, asset distribution, and customized marketing materials, and Fusion Pro VDP, which is scalable variable data publishing software that generates dynamic, personalized marketing campaigns, automated VDP workflows, and custom web solutions. So what we're going to do is have Mike go through a brief overview of Monigle so you understand a little bit more about the company, and then we're going to have a discussion about the value of brand identity services and take your questions. So Mike, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little about Monigle.
Thank you, Carrie. Glad to have this opportunity today. A little bit of perspective might be appropriate up front. I actually before joining Monigle, spent many years at 3M Company, and my last assignment there, I was National Sales Manager of the Printing and Publishing Systems Division. So I had a very significant immersion into the materials that support the entire print process, the distribution channels, the end user printers, and so forth. So I'm really looking forward to our discussion today and try to take that perspective of those of you on the call who are in the print fulfillment area, printers, and how that can work together with this increasingly important initiative with our clients around branding and implementing their brand identities. So Monigle Associates, we're based in Denver, and we're a 40-year-old company. We started building brand management websites about 16 or 17 years ago, and in this digital age that we're involved with, the brand can become very, very difficult for our clients to manage across diverse audiences, diverse systems, diverse geographies. And first and foremost, our firm is here to help organizations develop the best possible brands and communicate those brands, and that's where the visual identity component comes into play. There's really no signs of the complexity of all of these needs abating in any kind of way. That cohesive brand experience needs to be there, and IT is an increasingly important component of it. So that led us to developing what we call Identity Manager. It's a central hub that's customized to each client that gives the guidance and the implementation strategies, best practices, and all of the assets that an organization needs to be effective in their outgoing processes around brand management. And some of the organizations that we have built these sites for appear on this slide. This is just a small cross-section of those that we do this work for. But as you can see, there's quite a significant number of well-known brands, and then there's some lesser-known brands. And so essentially every organization has a brand, and the extent to which they manage that is really at their discretion. As I mentioned, we've been working in this space for over 40 years, and the other components of what we consult with our clients on are branding insights, meaning research and understanding the audiences, building the right strategies, the right expressions or brand positions, naming, taglines, things of that nature, the design, the visual design system, how logos, colors, imagery all work together to be very impactful. The branded experiences can include retail spaces, physical spaces, wayfinding, signage, and also any other interaction that people have with the brand, and then activation, and that's where this practice area falls into place, is the activation of the brand, the ongoing sustainability and management of the brand, and that's why it's so important to have tools and processes in place to be sure that this is working right. So with this graphic at the heart of these components, Identity Manager, we are a cloud-based system. We interact with digital asset management. We interact with project management and brand governance in some cases, marketing management systems in some cases. So increasingly what we're finding is that our clients are looking for the best processes and systems to be more efficient on their brands and really recognize the return on investment for these kinds of systems. We track the usage, we track the economic return, and that's really one of the things that drove us very significantly to integrate MarcomCentral into the offering and into the discussions we're having with people, because we want to operationalize the brand and the visual identity to the greatest extent possible. So that's a little bit of background on that component.
Great, thank you. And I was just in listening to that. I'm sure that one of the questions that our audience has is, do you actually print any of this stuff?
We don't. We keep a wall between us and actually the print fulfillment processes. We believe there are many other people that know that a lot better than we do. We tend even not to get too much into recommendations for who to use unless our clients ask us for that kind of recommendation, and printers that we know understand how this fulfillment process and this brand support will work. We're glad to give those recommendations, but we don't lead with it.
And a lot of our listeners may have some form of web to print, but what you're describing really takes this to a whole different level. So then you might think about a normal web to print system.
Well, it definitely does, because we're backing up to some extent. We're backing up and making sure that our clients have the fundamental correct tools and the correct processes that inform developing the impactful materials that they're subsequently going to get printed, or that are subsequently going to be used for websites and apps and other kinds of things. So we're looking at this as an integrated communication system, but we definitely have a mind and an eye on the print process, because the output, it needs to be on brand, it needs to be approved, it needs to be impactful, so the messaging needs to be strong, it needs to look good, it needs to be printed really, really well, so when a recipient gets communication from one of our clients, they form very positive impressions of that brand.
That's great. And maybe, when we talked earlier, you said that you had sort of a brand portal solution in the past, but what prompted you to look for something new, and why did you particularly pick MarcomCentral out of the options that are available in the market?
Well, thank you. Yes, we actually worked with two different services over the last 15 or 16 years and had success, but our strategic objectives were to create more flexibility for our organization, and that would translate to more flexibility into how we interact with our clients. We wanted better control of the interaction and the systems and how we applied these tools. We definitely wanted better design alignment between a resource like this and the brand experience and the brand expression of our client, and not be restricted. As you can imagine, as you saw from our foundation and our core competency, design is a huge, huge part of what we promise to our clients. So MarcomCentral, allowed us to have that better design alignment. We love the fact that MarcomCentral, is continuously developing features and functions, and gave us a great roadmap of what we could expect in the future. We don't have the time and resources nor the expertise to be doing development and enhancements on a tool like this. We want to spend our time focusing on the client, understanding their use cases, and finding the right solutions to it, not necessarily developing all of those solutions ourselves. So I think it was a combination of those things. We also believe that, and we have experienced a great financial relationship and great financial impact by implementing the MarcomCentral system. So all in all, I think those were the key drivers.
Great, and I think it'll help our audience understand a little better what you do if we go through an example of a couple examples here of client engagements. And why don't we start with the Deloitte example, and you could talk a little bit about what you did for them.
Oh, this is great. Yes, we started working with Deloitte about 15 years ago, believe it or not, and this is the home page of what is called Deloitte Brand Space. This is the fundamental capability that Monigle brings to the clients that you saw on that graphic earlier. This is the one-stop shop, the brand portal, if you will, for all things brand implementation and brand management. So you can see there's information here about the brand and our purpose and the brand in action, and the top navigation shows the various guidelines and applications of the brand and best practices and all of the assets like image libraries and logo files and things of that nature. And I'll just go ahead and advance to some of the things that we try to differentiate ourselves in the marketplace and really help our clients get their people on board and engaged with implementing the brand. And so you can see from this graphic the Deloitte brand experience. It's how we look, it's how we sound, how we feel, and what we believe, and how we behave, and ultimately how we live the brand. And so these tools and processes, and this is part of the content on the site, by the way, this is fundamental in getting people to understand when we get into the nuts and bolts and the implementation, like you see here, selecting the right colors, applying the logo in the right way. It makes a difference. It's very important. And if we can capture their engagement and their attention, then these tools make perfect sense. Then we also make those tools available, like in this particular case, this is the download center. This is how a user, an authorized user, would get access to the Deloitte logo artwork, or how they would get a PowerPoint template, or they'd get an image, a photo. We're trying to make these tools readily available, and of course, when somebody gravitates to these resources, they're always on brand and a robust image library. Sometimes we work with clients that have a digital asset management system in place, and they'll pull a subset of those images over to their brand center and make those available to their users. Another example, Carrie?
Please, go ahead.
Okay. This is an example of work we've done with American Express around their digital brand properties, and you can see the 4 prominent functions that are highlighted on this homepage are the design, and these are specifically for the design of digital applications like websites and apps and so forth, but how they're best designed, how they're developed, the assets or the code snippets that the developers use to build new digital properties, and then the latest updates. So it just it just shows that we're serving our clients in digital realms as well as more commonly used realms. This is a great example. Synchrony Financial is a new organization that just launched about 18 months ago. They were a spin-off of General Electric. They're a credit card management service, and this is the homepage of their site, and it talks about how the brand is being implemented. You can see some of these key banners talking about functions and resources, like the second one in with the red background. Over 40 new icons are available. So users that come back to the site are getting regular emails from the site telling them that there's new resources, but they can very quickly jump in and find those resources, and we make it easy for the clients to manage the sites by giving them a content management dashboard for all the content, all the assets. So what you're seeing here is our core offering to these clients and what gets them connected to us, and we're speaking at that level of competency and experience around helping them set up the right processes and the right resources to manage their brands. And when we started this discussion many, many years ago, it kind of focused on these things, but over time it's moved more and more into the processes. And of course, measuring what you're doing, how people are interacting with these sites. We even measure return on investment, so we're tracking activities. We've got estimated savings and labor rates that we're applying. And, speaking of processes and things that are starting to become more and more popular, you see some branded merchandise here, shirts and the like, that are part of the Synchrony Brand Center developed by Monigle. But this, if I were on the site and I clicked on this link to the Vault Shop, I would leave the site and I would go out to a contract branded merchandise vendor that Synchrony has selected themselves. And so this demonstrates the fact that increasingly we're leveraging and linking to other resources that are part of this greater network of tools that help manage the brand. So anything that falls under that umbrella, we're finding an increasingly comfortable client base looking at pulling these together. They like the fact that it's a one-stop shop, bringing everybody to a brand center, but then where else can we go with that? And that's really what got us into this idea of customizing collateral materials for production through print. We kind of hit this mark with merchandise and customization of print collateral at the same time. So, go ahead, Carrie.
As I listen to you describe it, one of the things that it becomes very obvious very quickly is that whatever system somebody chooses has to be flexible enough to give it a very different look for each customer, and then you also have to be open enough to be able to connect to their systems.
Yeah, I think that's correct. And different clients that we work with have different experiences. They have different objectives and goals and different visions, and some are more comfortable seeing this as a more expanded, more robust solution. Some are more interested in a let's prove that this works and phase it over time. And get our user base, comfortable with these kinds of tools. So we are comfortable having that discussion with our clients at every level. That's our job, is to make sure that they understand the opportunities, not only around having the right brand resources and tools in place to provide resources to people who are developing materials, developing brochures and collateral pieces that are subsequently going to get printed. So we want to be as informative in the process as early as we can, And then we've found that our clients are increasingly comfortable with talking about the fulfillment and talking about the customization of those materials and improving those processes. And that's why we felt we needed a customization system that would leverage the other work that we're doing.
Great. And now we've got Duke.
Yes, and what we're seeing on the screen here is Duke Medicine Brand Center, and this has all the attributes of what we saw with Deloitte or Synchrony or some of the other clients that we've worked with. It's the basic center that they come to on the web to learn about the brand, to understand the development guidelines and policies and best practices to get the associated brand resources. And you can see prominently a tab marked Customized Materials. And this got Duke really, really excited because, not only they have a process and a set of tools in which they want their materials developed, but they wanted to be smarter and faster to the market and more economical in the way these materials got produced. So we turned to the MarcomCentral system to develop a suite of materials, and this is a sampling of some of those that you'll see here: posters, rack cards, simple flyers, trifold brochures, etc. I think we have about 25 or 30 different types of marketing collateral that are on the system, and then the process, of course, is anyone who is authorized to get access to these customized materials can come in, they can find a category, they can open up a template, and they can follow the tutorial that's provided to make the customization to that file in accordance with the rules. And this is what our customers really love about the MarcomCentral solution, is that we have the ability to define which elements of a soon-to-be printed brochure are customized by that user and what are the rules within that category. So we have found it to be a very, very natural extension of just this fundamental concept of implementing your brand properly. And to do that, any kinds of tools, any kinds of systems and processes that are going to make that work better, very welcome in the discussion with our clients.
Great. Those are really three great examples. I know you have lots more, and people could visit your website to check that out, because you've got a lot of good stuff on your site as well.
Thank you.
Also, always when we get into these, sort of extended services beyond print, we always need to talk about how to sell them. And your sales process might be a little different than what a printer is doing, but maybe you could talk a little bit about who you talk to by title in the customer account, and what are the pain points they're trying to address.
Sure. Well, one of the things that I always like to try to determine in any organization, because brand can be a little bit abstract, is who really has responsibility for the brand in the organization. That typically falls with the chief marketing officer. Some organizations will have a VP of branding. Some it'll be VP of marketing communications, or maybe even a title such as brand director. Sometimes the creative services department is a resource, and they have a significant ownership responsibility for the brand. So we try to understand who those people are. But I think for this concept of giving these organizations customizable tools that are going to make them faster to the market, more cost-effective, and more impactful with their printed communications, I think it's, even though there might likely be somebody who's responsible for print production, I would try to expand my reach into some of these key executive areas and tell them the story as well, to frame this vision of a new kind of system.
When I was working at Icon, one of the challenges was convincing the CFO that marketing was worth investing in. So do you find yourselves talking to the financial people too?
Occasionally we do, but for the most part, they may come into the conversation later when the justification of the system is one of the questions, and that's one of the reasons why we developed the dashboard, the return on investment calculation that I referenced earlier. That gives us a direct correlation between all these different activities that are happening in the organization and the time that people can save and move on to their next task. And we have had just absolutely stunning results from using that dashboard. That tends to help inform the CFO that we are thinking about the financial impact and the value that a system like this is going to bring to the organization. And I think they appreciate the fact that we're speaking their language at that point.
That's great, and we have a couple questions we can sort of address here. The first one, I think the answer is fairly obvious, but all users need their own credentials, right, to access the portals.
Yes, that's
it's a secure environment.
It is a secure environment, and our clients are very conscious of the needs for that. We typically set up user groups. User groups can be as defined as 1 user, 2 users, so they can be very small, but that serves up the content and the permissions to these different functions to people on a need-to-use basis, need-to-know basis, and we work with our clients to define that structure.
And they might have to integrate in, like if they want a single sign-on or something like that, you might have to integrate with their Microsoft Exchange server or something like that?
Yes, a single sign-on is the preferred and the recommended way to manage that. These resources are accessed from our clients through their intranet, through their own network. So if someone on their side wants to come to their brand center, they click a link or an icon. The system authenticates them. It sends us that request. We have their roles and responsibilities in our database, and we grant permission to the version of the site that is appropriate for that. All of our clients love giving access to this kind of resource to outside vendors and agencies, and those are done through a URL, username, and password system.
And obviously, when you're talking to the folks, you want to address, talk to them in their language and address their particular pain points. So what is it that you most commonly see? What's their biggest issue or their top 3 biggest issues that you can help solve with a solution like this?
Well, I think it's brand consistency and making sure that the materials are developed and they're produced and reproduced properly. So it's consistency. That leads over to impact, is the information impactful? I think time to market is a huge concern. And our clients love to know that they're going to be faster developing and executing on their strategies through having these kinds of tools. And the third benefit is the economic impact, and knowing that the tasks that they're performing are being done in a state-of-the-art, efficient fashion that incorporates the best use of technology and experience.
And also, just from an administrative perspective, this can help because it's a sort of a self-serve environment for their community, right?
That's right.
Yeah, so it can save a lot of time there. Also, let's talk a little bit about the template environment. I'm assuming that, because MarcomCentral supports this with their whole environment there, how important do you find that to be for people? I mean, to let people closest to the customer, for example, customize things, that kind of situation?
I think everyone, in theory, likes the concept of the people who are closest to the customers, closest to the subject matter, be able to create the kinds of materials that are subsequently going to be printed. What they're concerned about, of course, is people taking liberties with the brand, or liberties by selecting the wrong image or using the wrong color, or not really being skilled enough to implement the right brand. They are subject matter experts, but they're not designers, and the worst thing is when they start taking design liberties. And so our clients really want a way to kind of bridge the best of both worlds. They want to give tools to people closest to the client so the message is precise, but they want to make sure that the visual and the brand essence is represented properly. And so that's what the MarcomCentral solution does. These templates lock down the parts of the materials that we don't want people tinkering with. They probably aren't trained. They probably don't have the software, and they just don't necessarily have that brand and that visual identity perspective. They're focusing on the content. MarcomCentral lets us do that.
And what about email templates? Obviously you could do business cards and brochures and signs and those things. But what about email templates and things like that?
Well, we're starting to move into that now. I guess like a lot of other things, if you float that subject with the client, you're going to get a perspective, all the way from we've been thinking about that to we haven't been thinking about that. We have other ways we get that done, but you'll never know till you start the conversation. So we are increasingly including the ability to customize electronic applications within the MarcomCentral tools, and that just brings a whole nother level, I think, of value and credibility to what we're talking about, because they know that we're thinking about not only their print workflow, but their digital workflow too.
That's great. And maybe speaking of workflow, maybe we could talk a little bit about a typical workflow, and we can use this one as an example.
This is an interesting one that we developed with one of our clients. On the bottom of this chart, you see users coming into a customized template application, which the foundational piece is MarcomCentral. But we identified the fact that they have two categories of templates. They have some that fit well and can be customized within a templated approach, and then they have these really complex marketing materials that need some kind of interaction with a custom creative service team, a designer, so forth. So the user comes in and they determine whether they need a designer or they can customize a template. So let's assume they go to the right, they can customize the template within the MarcomCentral system. Some of the templates require approval by another person. Some of them don't. But subsequently, as they are developed, they move into their brand center, and they're cataloged in their brand center for access by other users who can come in and find any other resources that may have been customized by someone else, so they don't have to start their own. Then that kicks out a new file, which subsequently gets integrated with their Salesforce.com content and approval process, where they vet that new piece of customized material, because ultimately you can see in the purple box up above that, Salesforce.com, they want these customized content materials, and they've got a fairly defined audience of users who are customizing the materials. They want to customize them and make them available to their entire sales operation. So the sales reps will come into Salesforce.com or their brand center, and they'll find these materials, but it gives them two places to look for them. We initially were just going to keep the materials in the brand center, but their people are in Salesforce.com so much that we thought it made perfect sense to have a resource there as well. So I'm going to do an outreach to a client. I can find the material, I can get the PDF, and I can go with it. And now we're even talking about getting kind of web to print, where I might want to print copies of these materials and get them to the user. So there's lots going on, but when we sit down and we think about the workflow and the use cases and how the MarcomCentral tool can reinforce their brand, how it can interact with tools like Salesforce.com and others, these are the kinds of discussions that people are increasingly comfortable having and probably expect us to have some knowledge and anticipate those needs.
And do you find that people want to use this as a punch-out catalog from a another application like Ariba or maybe an Oracle or something like that?
Well, I haven't had a lot of demand for that so far. We have clients where we are integrated with Ariba, but it's not for this kind of workflow. It's, this so far the integration has really been around digital asset management systems, Salesforce.com, marketing approval or marketing workflow systems, and the ability to approve new materials that are being designed by designers get approved, and then they get dropped into the system. They get converted over to customizable templates. We build that out using the MarcomCentral platform and then offer that up to the clients.
Okay, and we already talked about the fact that you don't actually print and that you don't necessarily get involved in the decision process. But if you think about a commercial printer who's offering web to print or these kinds of services, what do you think it would take for them to offer a higher level of services along the lines of what you're doing? And of course, how could you help them do that?
Well, I think that let's talk about the obvious opportunity for printers, and that is to be integrated further back into the processes that the client uses in their organization for things that are ultimately going to be print. So I think the more a printer, and this kind of goes back to my days at 3M when I got a chance to really live this every day with how do printers create new business opportunities for themselves, how do they best position themselves with their clients, and so having a customization tool or system like MarcomCentral allows you to have that discussion about going back, integrating further into the process, so that you're anticipating and you're understanding that in a client's real world, they would love to have the opportunity to customize certain files before they get sent to the printer and not have the cost and the time investment in having a designer do that. So you're demonstrating your understanding of their processes and opening up that dialogue with them. So I think it brings another level of value in trying to have processes and systems that are going to be better serving the client. So I think that's kind of the first step. I think the next step is it creates a some people talk about that sticky environment where we're working together. We've invested time and energy putting together the right tools and resources, and it's just you're creating barriers against them moving to another printer because you've developed more than just a transactional relationship. You've developed an integrated relationship between systems, and so that just demonstrates your willingness and your interest in providing more value to them.
And one of the other questions we got from the audience is how do you bill for these services? You personally, and what would how would the printer sort of fit into the model?
Sure. We actually, the sites that you saw earlier are our core business, our brand center projects. We have a development cost to bring a new site up live and populate it with client information. Then we add modules to that engagement. MarcomCentral is one of the modules that we always talk about. Many of our clients take advantage of it. So it's got its own budget, which is defined. So we have a development cost. And then we have a monthly hosting and services, kind of security services and so forth. We like to then work with the client to identify a printer or printers that they're going to want to send the customized templates to for print production. And we advise our clients that we believe they should have a direct billing and invoicing scenario with those printers. We don't want to be a part of that. We don't extract a commission or a fee because we don't believe that we're really adding any value to that part of the process. So we like to keep that part separate and distinct from what Monigle does. So from my experience in talking to some clients that have had printers make an offer like this to them, I've heard it several ways. I've heard printers that have offered to build out template systems like this with a development cost or a fee up front. I've heard In other cases, that they have allocated the cost of that into the cost of the print services. So I think clients are probably receptive to either one of those or maybe even additional scenarios.
And I hear when people are out selling web portals of various types, I hear different approaches. Sometimes they'll do like a complete needs analysis before they design any kind of prototype, and other times they'll come into the meeting with a prototype. What are your thoughts around that?
Well, we have so much experience and so many client sites that we can show, and in cases that we can communicate to our clients that often they see things that we're doing for other clients that they feel will naturally fit their environment. Then there's always the caveats. There's always the uniquenesses of that organization's culture or their objectives and goals and how they measure and how they implement and who their users are. So we just try to be receptive and flexible to doing that. But we, from a brand management and a brand identity management standpoint, we try to impress on people that we are so experienced and so knowledgeable of this that we can come in and collaborate in a short time. We can create the vision and the structure and the plan for building a site, and we can do that in a 3 or 4 month time period. And that means adding modules like MarcomCentral. We can work with them to plan the types of materials that they have in their organization that lend themselves best to a customized template environment, catalog those, prioritize those, understand the users, help them think about what parts of a brochure, for instance, should be customizable and which parts should be locked down. So we try to bring that level of experience and really accelerate the process of planning, if you will.
But the bottom line is you wouldn't typically walk into a meeting with a prototype site of their stuff. The initial meeting.
We don't. We never do that, and I think our clients appreciate that, even though sometimes they may wish that we would do that. We don't feel like we're informed enough to do that. But I can give the audience a tip that I've found to be extremely, extremely helpful in the MarcomCentral template environment. We do develop some prototypes around individual templates, and I always try to do 1 or 2 with a new prospect, and that's to take a problematic piece or take a typical piece that would likely be customized and get their materials, develop a template, set up a URL, give them access to that, and then take them through a meeting or a WebEx to show them how the template works. And that basically provides them with a resource that they can start socializing this story in their own organization for the benefits of having a MarcomCentral type template system. And there's probably no substitute for seeing your own materials in a system like this. They get it when they see other organizations' templates, but it's a little more emotional when they see their own materials. And we know people often base a lot of their buying decisions on emotion.
That's true. So that's some really good advice for our audience. Maybe you could talk a little bit about the changing role of the agency, because I know a lot of our viewers have agencies as customers, and sometimes there's a concern that they don't want to step on their toes.
Well, I think, frankly, in my experience, some agencies look at resources like this. Some look at them as a threat. Others look at them as an opportunity, and I think that your opportunity is, again, what we talked about before. You're integrating yourself back deeper into the organization than you are waiting for a transactional opportunity from a client to print a job. So anytime you can do that, I think that's better. Some agencies, I think, prefer the complexity of the old business model, where there may be more revenue streams for them in redesigning materials over and over and over again and customizing them to different applications. But my philosophy and ours here has always been, at some point in time, if you're not cognizant of the new tools and the new work processes, you're you're somewhat vulnerable to being replaced by somebody who does. So I think embracing those opportunities and then looking for that relationship to blossom and grow. I just had a call yesterday with one of our clients that is so comfortable with the work that we've done around implementing the MarcomCentral solution for customizable templates that we are now in discussions on a completely new scope of work. Part of it's going to include building more and more templates, which will generate more and more activity. If we were a printer, that would be more printing, but we're not. But we're helping the client serve more and more of their needs. But it also is backing into helping them with some initiatives that are going to require new materials. So it's that collaboration, it's that trust, it's that added value that we bring, and it's just worked beautifully because we've given them a great template solution to improve their time to market, their consistency, their economic situation.
And we're getting towards the end of the session, so I just want to remind our listeners if they have any additional questions to get those in so that we can get Mike's answers live during the session. And so as we kind of wrap up, why don't you've already given a lot of great advice, but maybe you have some additional advice you can share with people in terms of how they might be able to pursue an expansion of their current efforts or implementation of a system like this.
Sure. Well, I think that the MarcomCentral solution and this general category, if you will, of customizable template capabilities, software, call it what you wish. I think from my experience, not only with talking to our clients about branding and how to best build their brands, but also going back to my experience at 3M talking about, print workflow, is that I think these are very synergistic and very leverageable for the kinds of work that printers do. So I think strategically evaluating where it fits in your services and developing the kind of the value proposition and how it would supplement and complement what you do. I've always thought that there's nothing better than once you get your story together, go out and talk to your 3 or 4 of your really good customers and say, we're thinking about expanding our business into this area, and these are the kinds of value that we think it would bring to our clients, and get some opinions from people. I think that's a good approach to take because you learn a lot along the way about how the clients really think about this kind of service, not just what you think about it or somebody else thinks about it. And you never know, they might just turn out to be one of your first clients.
And if somebody's got a good client like that they'd like to really offer the full range of services but don't really feel comfortable with it yet, I assume you'd be willing to partner with them.
Yes, I think the place that we might be able to assist some of those of you that are on the call is when you run across a situation where one of your clients is struggling with the implementation of the brand. They're frustrated about people not being consistent, developing materials that are off-brand. And you probably heard it a number of times, because I certainly have, is print jobs that have to be destroyed and produced because somebody used the wrong logo, they used the wrong elements, they used the wrong tools. And this is an area where our brand center capability can come into that to that discussion. And if any of you wanted to call me directly and say, I've got a customer I think is kind of struggling with this a little bit, we're glad to collaborate with you, and we're glad to be of whatever assistance we can be. We've had organizations bring references to us for new projects, and we compensate for that. We think there's a definite value in you taking the time and the energy and putting the trust in us to bring one of your clients to us for a discussion. And we, as somebody here on our staff once said, we play well with others. we know what our role is, and we know we love the idea of creating these these collaborations. And we know that print production is so important to our clients. We respect that. We want to be knowledgeable of all of that. But we can also maybe help you guys, help your clients developing other processes and tools that lead to better outcomes in their print production.
You know, as I was listening to you talk about some of the what we often call rogue marketing materials, right? I was thinking about PowerPoint presentations because in a lot of the organizations I've been in, that's the worst offender. So I'm assuming that PowerPoint templates is one of the things that you can help people with.
Oh, it's one of the more interesting new areas that we've found of interest there. You know, most organizations have fairly complex PowerPoint needs, and you know, the ability to just customize those straight away and not turn a native template over to somebody and let them do the best they can possibly do. And the alternative to that is to having a staff that's, you know, spending a lot of time customizing it. And whenever, you know, one of the nice things about having the MarcomCentral solution at our clients is that the templates have been very well thought out, very well designed and architected. And we have noticed a significant decrease of people who not only want to get a new print brochure developed and customized, but they have less inclination to try to redesign it because they're not really given the opportunity to do that through the template. The fundamental design is fixed and locked down, and they understand this is why we lock it down, because we want the maximum brand impact we can get.
Well, and the salespeople are probably the biggest offenders, right? So
I've heard rumors to that effect.
and it makes them a lot more efficient if they're not having to monkey around with the templates. So I think that's really important. And I understand that MarcomCentral integrates with PowerPoint directly, and also can integrate with ExactTarget and Marketo, our marketing automation, email marketing and marketing automation systems.
Right. And these are the kinds of big ideas I think that people are interested in learning about. There's a certain amount of best practice sharing there, and I think, you know, the print production, it's important to be knowledgeable and cognizant of those processes and play a significant role in those processes. So we find, you know, some people are very visionary and they want to go as fast as they can. Some people want to go slower just to prove that these connections and integrations work. But I think with MarcomCentral, we've been able to have great conversations and deliver some level of resource at whatever level the client is comfortable with.
And I just as sort of an extra little thought, people might want to take a look at some of the data and reports that the CMO Council produces, because they do regular surveys of marketing professionals. You know, what are you planning on investing in marketing technology and those kinds of things. So looking at that data also maybe gives people another selling point that says, hey, you know, 56% of your peers are looking at this stuff. You should be too.
Exactly.
I mean, not that that's the right number, but you know, it should be 100. It should be 100%, right? Well, I don't see any additional questions. Did you have any remarks you wanted to add in closing?
Well, no, just thank you for the opportunity. It's great to share these practices with everyone. We always think of it in the context for, you know, most of these major organizations. They have a brand, and if they don't, you know, think about it, and they don't think about the processes they're applying and the tools they're using, then, you know, they may not get the best outcomes. So we're always trying to, you know, think of ways to collaborate and think of ways to, you know, help the client be successful. And so anytime we get a chance to do that, you know, technology is moving. You know, new technology is not for everybody, but it is for some people. So I think overall, our clients love to see demonstrable success. And when we can show them that we've implemented, it's been successful, people are saving money. I'll never forget the conversation I had with a CMO about this customizable template application. We started just having a rough conversation. He had one particular category of collateral that he knew had been produced 1,400 times the previous year, customized through his central design group. We ran the numbers, we ran the time savings, and the back of the napkin return on investment. He was going to be able to pay for the investment in a MarcomCentral type system in about 3 or 4 months. And,
wow.
and this is the kind of thing that makes them look good, makes them feel good, and be able to have those kind of conversations. He saved a lot of designer time just by having a customizable template engine at his disposal. And then, of course, he had all the print workflow and everything that went behind it. But it's just being there as a resource, being knowledgeable, and being able to serve them well. That always works in the end.
And that whole ROI thing is increasingly important, because I think the days where the marketing budget was just kind of this big black hole that they said, we have to do this, we don't really know what it means, are gone. And they want, the boardroom wants that ROI. They want to see the financial returns on their investments, whether it's marketing or anything else.
They do. That's an age-old desire, but I think there's sort of a sense that we ought to be able to be more precise, be more timely, more accurate with how we calculate the value of all of these things that we're doing. In all of the work that we've done in our brand consultation and building websites for clients, the most measurable, accurate, precise return on investment we've ever been able to display is with the customization of these templates, because it could take a designer 1, 2, 3, 4 hours to spin out a new version of a template with new content in it. We can turn that around in a matter of minutes. You start doing the delta between hours and minutes, and it is extremely powerful.
It adds up, and and their workload's not decreasing either, right? I mean, they're being asked to do more and more, and they've got to do it with the same resources. So this really helps them.
Exactly.
So we're right about at the top of the hour, and so I want to thank everybody for joining us for this great program. And Mike, a really special thanks to you for sharing all of your expertise with us. I mean, I know our listeners are going to want to come back to this session and listen to it again and take a look at some of those example slides, and visit your site at Monigle.com, right? And I left your contact information up there so people could get that if they want to reach out to you. And then I also wanted to say thanks again to our friends at MarcomCentral for sponsoring today's webinar. You can check them out at Marcom.com to learn more about their marketing on demand solutions that can help print providers stay relevant in a digital world, elevate service offerings like we've been talking about today, and ultimately the end goal is to be able to boost revenues. So stay tuned for news about future What They Think webinars, and be sure to check out the webinars section on What They Think for great archive sessions you might have missed. We do hope that you found today's session helpful as you think about the future of your business, and I want to say thanks again and enjoy the rest of your day.